Hello and welcome to Stampscapes Live. This is a 4 by 6. I am so used to saying quarter page card, but this is a 4 by 6 card base with your silver cardstock down below. You can see it's a little bit matted because I did a lot of spray sealing down here of these images right down below. Those images were stamped in, or that image was stamped in black Brilliance ink, and that white is the white Brilliance ink underneath it. It has been locked down with your Krylon workable fixative, okay? I probably should have masked off a little bit so I don't get all that overspray up there, but I don't mind a little bit of that up there. And we're going to pair this with this 4 by 6 photo print of some clouds. You can download these off the Facebook group or off my Flickr album. Just a bunch of pictures of skies, photographs of skies, and they're all free for download. This has been printed onto some sort of a, I don't know, cardstock or something like that. It's not photo paper, okay? But it requires me to stamp onto it with a StazOn ink, okay? If you just print out these photo prints on standard photo paper, like you're using your inkjet printer, you can just stamp on them with practically any type of ink except your oil-based pigment inks, okay? StazOn, water-based dyes. In fact, that's my favorite thing to stamp on them is just some water-based dyes. Or you can go with a water-based Brilliance ink in, you know, probably black is what you would use, but water-based on your home prints, okay? Hello, Debbie and Linda, how are you? Okay, so the main test that I'm doing here, this is what this is going to look like right here. I'll stamp onto this this print here with a StazOn ink. It's going to be black, but I'm going to see if I can bring in some autumn tones just using some paint pens right over the top of it. Okay, it might look a little bit clunky, but we're going to test it out, and then we'll bring in some these additional leaves down below, and we'll see how that looks. Now, if I've done this before, I don't remember. So I wanted to check it out. Typically, my way of getting some autumn tones into a background like this is to use a vellum overlay. So I can put the vellum over the top of this, and then we can do some colors in the back of the vellum, on the front of the vellum, and put it right over the top of this. We can make it opaque in some areas with the use of, you know, some Dr. Martin's bleed-proof white watercolor paint, white watercolor paint, and we can do some blocking out, but I'm going to just see if I could skip some steps and if this would come out just okay as is here. So let's give that a shot here. I don't know when Shutterfly kind of switched off to, unless they've always done it, like 4-color printing or something like that. Or it might be a photo paper and they've just completely spray sealed it with a glossy kind of coating. But for our applications, I don't want it to be sealed up because I want to be able to use other types of inks on here, dye-based inks, you know, mainly. I just feel that I get a really good impression with that. Although that, I don't know, the StazOn gave me a good impression there. Okay, let's take a look here. See, like that. I mean, that looks pretty cool as is, but I want to bring in some colors into it. So let's see how that goes. Hello, Cynthia, how are you? All right, let's put another little piece over there. Now let's leave it open. Okay, I was going to put another bit of this part of the design, like right there, over there. But I think that looks pretty good as is. And, you know, just kind of open, I don't know, open into the horizons or something like that. All right. This might go, the composition part of it might go faster than I thought. Okay, now let's bring in some additional forms in here. Let me get the gist of this right here. Let's bring in some rocks right around maybe here and over here. Let's see. And I think I want to put this rider in here too, like about like this. Okay. Get that cotton ball out of there. Okay, let's see. Okay. I'm going to do this rider first. When I did this piece right here, I stamped these bushes down here, these branches first, when I should have done this, the main subject first, and then work the branches around it. Because here I had to alter that a little bit. I had to kind of diffuse and fade out that shadow of the horse right down in here. Because this has already been stamped in here, so I didn't want this solid black shadow in these whatever these branches right there. So it's like you really should stamp out the main things and then work your other imagery around it, rather than working the main imagery around something else. Just I don't know, it makes sense. But I don't know, I forgot that. Okay, let's see. Let's put this rider right about here, I think. Now this is where, I don't know, having some of that overspray from the workable fixative on this silver cardstock, it might make the cardstock a little bit more, I don't know, kind of receptive to the ink impressions a little bit more. See, I got a pretty good solid impression of that horse on there. Sometimes when I'm stamping it just directly on top of bare, very shiny and sealed silver cardstock or the gold one, sometimes I get that, I get that fisheye or whatever you call it, and then I have to come and, fill in, with some extra ink or just, I don't know where my Sharpie pen went. My Sharpie pen in there. But this provides a little bit of texturing in here, because that's what workable fixative does. It leaves a texture on there so you can work additional graphite, charcoal, pastel, those types of things over the top of your sealant, where the other sealants are more slick and, sealed off. The workable fixative leaves a little bit of a grain on their tooth. So I don't know. That's what I'm thinking is probably happening in there, in terms of it accepting or being more accepting of additional or the stays on top of there. Okay, so let me see here. Let's get some other rocks into there. I forgot about these rocks right here. I was using these like all the time. They're from one of the desert sets. I think the first desert set. But I really love them. All right, so let's see. Let's do. I often just stamp it in kind of parts like this. Coming in from the left and right side. It looks great as a whole too, but see those rocks right in there. I mean, I could have blocked those out too with some white if I planned that out a little bit more, but I'm not going to bother with that. All right, let's take a look at this. Hello, Christine. How are you? All right, so see that right in there, and then see these little areas in here, like in these little between the rocks. Those really leave a great spot to for some additional leaves or something like that. Those three-dimensional leaves. Those leaves are be a little bit too big in relation to this horse here, but it's one of those so what moments. It's one of those so what moments in scenic stamping when or in scenic stamping scale and perspective. It's like, well, how much more, cooler will it look with those in relation to whatever the reality of the scale of the piece. Okay, let's see. All right, these are just some smaller rocks right here. And, well, here, I'll put it right over here. Okay, maybe I'll just go with that right there. I think I don't want to go too much because sometimes I start approaching this area down here, this reflective area at times, the way that I think it would look best just as a scene in itself like this, but we have to do it in conjunction, or kind of gauge it in conjunction with all of those reflective parts up there. So we have like that. Now let's add in, I'm going to try to knock off all of the rubber stamping portion of this right away, or with what I foresee that I'll be using on here at least, okay? Tiny rock small. A lot of impressions of it typically. I want to put some over here, but this little outcropping of rocks ends, let's see, right there. So let's go to about, it's a little past the midpoint, I guess. I'll have it extend it a little bit more. Okay. Let's see what that looks like here. I hope you guys all had a nice weekend. Okay. Let's go with... What I'm thinking about right now is if I want some autumn branches here in the foreground too, it would be good probably to bring in some additional color in the foreground. Okay, so what I'm going to try to do in the background right here in these trees and have like some autumn type of foliage, I guess I'll try to do something similar a little bit to some degree in the foreground here. I'll put these branches down here like this, and we'll color some of them in color. It might, the thing that this whole experiment's about is, you know, when you lay these colors down over the top of like black imagery, where you don't have too much of that color going on in the rest of the scene, which I won't in this one because you can't, you know, I can't really color this very well. That kind of floating, it is sealed off, you know, black and white ink in there. But if I start going around and bringing, like, you know, colored pencils are a no-go on here. It would just scratch off, even though this is sealed off with that spray sealant. It would scratch off the ink off of here because, you know, colored pencils are too, yeah, they're just not soft enough. So it has to be kind of a softer type of medium, and that would be something like the acrylic paint pens on there. Okay, so I just stamped out the leaves in here on both sides right in here, and this one goes up kind of right up here. All right, let's see if I can get something in here without it looking like super, super awkward. If it does, I might be able to remedy it a little bit with some additional white pigment ink over the top. That's like my solution for just about everything that I don't really like that's going on in my scenes. But again, it's like I can't really put too much of it down here in this area. I guess I can spray seal it off again and bring a little bit of white down in there. This area up here I can probably bring it in without any problem, but And let's just see how it goes. Oh, so I want to do this right here too. Let's do this after. Oops, I got my, I'm gonna get those leaves on there. I want to add some shadow work into the rocks down here, like on a previous scene. But okay, I need to do a bunch of stuff on here first. Let me not do that, otherwise I'm going to be like touching my hand into wet ink for, you know, the remaining portion of this video. Okay, so let's see here. Let's see what we can do here. All right, now my red, I just know from working with these paint pens before, it's not very like opaque at all for some reason. The red one to me is like really, really watery looking. It's not watery if you just kind of, you know, you're using it on like paper like that, a white piece of paper, but I find that when I use it over darker areas, although that looks really opaque. Is this the, oh, maybe it's pink that I was thinking about. I don't know. This one looks pretty opaque here. And I'll see what it looks like when it dries. Okay, but let's get some of this on here. I'll lay this down. We'll see how it goes. I was wondering if when it dries, if it gets, you know, kind of a lot more see-through like some of the other ones do. Okay, so that is that, okay? And I'll build up my oranges and yellows right over the top of that, but that'll kind of provide a base for the background. You can kind of work back and forth too. You can add in some other colors over the top of it, lighter tones, and if it's like, oh, that doesn't look, you know what I mean? If something's missing it needs more like crimson or something like that, then you can go back in and just layer this over the top of those other colors, and then you can balance it out with some lighter ones over the top of it or whatever, okay? Okay, but I didn't add it everywhere. I just kind of, look at that variation in there. Some are really a lot lighter and some are darker. I think the darker ones are where it's drying on there already. Hello, Froggy Fresh! All right, this is down on those leaves. That doesn't look good at all, that application like that. That looks really awkward. I'll try to remedy that. You know what it might be down at this lower area is I'm adding in these colors like this onto these leaves. I need to pick up some other colors of StazOn, by the way, too. But what you do is you can lay this out like this down here in the foreground area. You can get some color on there. I have a feeling it's not going to look good. But what you do then is you take this leaf stamp again, ink it up in black, and then you go over the top of all of that colored ink, you know, dot patterning on there. And that might be, you know, kind of a good solution if it looks kind of like, you know, really heavy-handed and awkward. You know, I'm hoping that, you know, if that's the case, then that will provide, you know, kind of a good working solution for that, or somewhat of the remedy. Okay. All right, now this one right here looks kind of, this one right here looks pretty, oh, translucent, okay? The orange. I have a feeling that this one's going to blend in even more than the red. Okay, like that. Okay. It's kind of coming to life a little bit. Yeah, that area right in here looks a little bit more three-dimensional, I think. Hello, Terry. Let's see. Yeah, okay, now see that right there? Okay, that red did kind of blend into that background a lot more than what it looked like when it was freshly applied. I think that in this case, I think that's a really good thing because these dots kind of stand out a lot when freshly applied. Or whatever applications you're doing, little, you know, you can do little checks or fill in or, you know what I mean, coloring. I tend to work in like this, kind of like a pointillism type of application with these pens most of the time. With the white ones, maybe a little bit less, so I might go for some other, types of marks. But usually with these ones, I usually do little dots. I find I can build up things kind of in a more gradual, I don't know, whatever fashion or gradual rate. All right, so that like that. I think that's looking like a pretty good base tone for the background there for the colors that are to come here. I laugh because you know I'm laughing at the kind of uncertainty in my voice. Okay, we're moving into the yellows now. I can't tell which one's lighter here. This one's a little bit more dull. This one's a little bit brighter looking. This one's a little bit more canary. This one's a little bit kind of a duller yellow. Let's go with the brighter one. This one, when I apply it, it has a greenish tinge to it almost. Okay, now see how light that looks? I bet you when it dries, it's going to be quite a bit darker. We'll see. All right, so if you guys just joined in, what I'm trying to do is I'm seeing if I can just kind of alter these trees from a completely black impression into kind of, more of a fall type of, full color foliage area with the acrylic paint pens, okay? I can feel this right here as I'm going on with this yellow. I'm kind of picking up some of the other colors underneath it, I think. Let me see. Okay, let's see. Now these pens by design are kind of a little bit waterier, on the waterier side of things, and that's partly the reason why they dry. I think a lot more see-through looking, and that wateriness. It's not as opaque. Okay. So that the pens don't clog up easily, at least over time. These are some of my oldest paint pens, and there's certain brands that'll clog a little bit, but I find just I don't know, whatever tool, like I don't know, whatever, just different paint pens that I find that they're generally similar, and I think I think they just have the chemistry down a little bit more, the ratios down of pigment to whatever binder. In this case, it's water because they're water-based acrylics. I think they have the formula down a lot more better, just from, I don't know, previous incarnations of things like gel pens and paint pens, because they clogged so much on us. So, I don't know, I really like them these days. Um, I did have some really good pens that I thought, because after using some of the more watery ones, I got this other set and it was really opaque and the colors were really nice and vibrant and like I said, opaque. And then I didn't use them for a month and like it dried all on the tip. And I can get through it as long as I can kind of like scrub off the shell of dry ink on paint. But I mean, who wants to do that every time? You know, if you're not using them, you know, I would guess like every few days, maybe. I don't know. But they were beautiful to work with because they were so opaque and rich. But it's like, my fears, you know, came true in that, you know, they clogged on me. I say my fears because when I started working with them, I was like, okay, well, these ones are a lot more opaque. I guess they got the, yeah, the you know, the, whatever they figured it out um, you know, how to get that opacity without it clogging. But you know, like I said, then it clogged. I know these pen companies. I've often wondered, um, do they do product testing? Hello, Zale. Especially with the gel pens of old. I know, I figured maybe the gel pens of old too. I don't know, they're being shipped over in these big old cargo containers that aren't, you know, air conditioned or something like that, maybe in transit, you know, getting over from China or whatever, you know, taking a month in some cargo container sitting out at some port, you know. Maybe the condition of the pens in that type of environment just, you know, kind of ravaged them in terms of their usability. All right, so that yellow was a little bit too extreme in there. So I'm going back in with some orange here. That looks better to me. So you go orange, then yellow, then back to orange, or dark to lighter and back to dark again. I don't know what red would look like on here. And also, kind of, you start applying some of this onto these objects, and when you first start doing it, you're kind of applying it over, in this case, kind of a dark background. But now I'm starting to build up these colors on here. So each kind of application might be a little bit more opaque, maybe. I don't know. I'm not sure. Because you're applying it over the top of other paint that's dried on there. So it's kind of sealing off the background a little bit more. And of course, it's getting lighter and lighter. So I don't know. We'll have to see how each kind of layer looks, especially when it's dry. This orange one right here, this one seems to be the most watery. It looks pretty good on just a white piece of paper, but I can tell on here it's just a little bit more kind of, you know, in that transparent range. All right, let me use more red. I'm often too, I'm too chicken with like this really super bright red in most of my scenes. Then I see, you know, I see photographs of like crimson or warm red tones, you know, super, super bright. And I often think that I need to do something more kind of along those tones or that degree of brightness in my pieces. Because you see it out in nature. But so, I don't know, sometimes when I'm working on it, like on a scene, it just, I don't know, it looks kind of fake the way, I don't know, the way that I've done it. Or tried it, maybe. Or maybe I haven't just tried it enough. All right, so there's some red right down in there. That looks better too, I think. It looks kind of weird though, so I think I'll have to go for that additional impression over the top of it with black, but All right, here's the red. This red looks a little bit, looks like a lighter red. I need like a darker red. Maybe when it dries it gets darker though. Okay, now I've added it up above. Now I'm going to add in some kind of the fallen leaves type of thing right in here. And let's do some of this. I'll add in some right down in here like that, like it's fallen into the water. Okay. Yeah, the lighting is a little bit different. That looks pretty decent, I think. Okay, this helps right here. See this, all these colors right up here? They're reflecting right down in here. Okay. So they're a little bit of a different tone than they are up here, but I think it helps this area right in here. You know, this area right in here kind of looks bizarre just like that, right? Looks like crayons or something. But you go like that, and that color brought down like that kind of helps. With just, I don't know, just the general kind of color harmony working in here. Oh, do you have the Posca pens, Tara? Posca pens, they come in, I know they come in the larger thick tip ones. Do they come in like a extra fine tip too, the 0.7 millimeter types? All right, let's see. I'm just kind of waiting here to see if this changes a little bit, you know, colors a little bit. I think it's looking pretty decent though. We might just leave it at that. Okay, now these trunks here, I like adding in those white trunks, but they already look white to me because I stamped them over the clouds. The clouds just happen to be in the background like that, so. Let's see if I can kind of make them look a little bit more rounded with a little bit of kind of a stronger white on them maybe. And we'll go up into the tree like that. And I'll just kind of make some kind of secondary branches, some smaller branches in here. Kind of where there aren't any, but I'm just kind of, you know, like faking it. If you ever had any branches in there, oh my God, I don't like that. Just go over it with, you know, some more paint pen dots and just cover it up though. Okay. As I go over it with my pen here, the wet paint of some of those dots is going up into your my 0.7 millimeter and clogging it a little bit. But what you do is you just scribble it out a little bit. I don't think I shook this up enough here too. So I think I can get a little bit more opacity here. All right, something like that, maybe. I might tweak it a little bit more, but let's see this, like that. So those trunks show up a little bit more right down in that reflection area. And I got a little awkward on a couple of those. Let me do that thing that I said. I'll just go over a couple of these branches with some extra orange leaves, like that, just to break up some of those lines that I added in there that were kind of awkward. Awkwardly applied. All right. I like that orange in there. It's kind of making that tree look a little bit better. Using more of it, I think. Okay, let's see. Let's try... Okay. Let's get some of these down here as well. The orange is like a little bit lighter than the red, or quite a bit lighter. So it stands out against those rocks a little bit more. And then accompanying some of those red leaves in there. We'll go some of that orange like that. Okay. And just like that. Let's bring some of those leaves out a little bit more. They're roughly the same kind of shape as the tiny rock small texturing down here. Kind of making them ovals, elongated a little bit more than just a dot. All right, so that's what that looks like that. And that always looks kind of weird to me just looking at the reflection portion of a reflection card, but this is how it looks like this. Okay, see these little leaves are kind of like floating against that background reflection like that. So it gives it a little bit more of a mirrored surface like that when you have things kind of floating on the surface like that. I haven't done it for a while, but I really like word stamps stamped in white in those reflection areas. Just don't have a word stamp stamped in white when you have the reflection of its top portion reflecting in white down there, otherwise you can't see it. Okay, so you want to do your reverse impressions usually in a dark area where the dark is reflecting down there, and it really stands out. It's really fantastic for if you're doing this reflective area and it's supposed to represent like ice or something like that. And that's really cool because if you stamp it in white, it looks like this text that's floating on ice or something like that. It's really fun to do. Okay, let's see. I think we're ready for some... let's move into... let's do some white highlighting in here. Hello, Bonnie. Happy Sunday evening to you. If anyone is watching from anywhere else in the world and not whatever North American time, good afternoon or good morning. Okay, now these rocks right in here, I'm just kind of giving a little bit of a top lit outlining, okay? It looks like that, okay? Hopefully it just kind of makes it stand out, you know, from the reflections a little bit more, having that kind of opaque, you know, kind of lighting on there. It looks kind of awkward right there because that's the only thing that I have like that right now. So let's kind of balance it off a little bit more. Now down here, this is white right here, but this pen is lighter than that brilliance white that's on top there, because that brilliance white, although I applied it in a pretty opaque amount of layering on there, you know, some of that silver cardstock is still showing through it right in here. So, you know, this is just kind of, I want that, but I just want to go and add in some additional kind of maximum highlighting in here where it's, you know, like really pure white. Just to kind of take it to, you know, make a full spectrum of it, I guess. Spectrum of values, range of values. All right, something like that. Okay, those highlights in there are a little bit right here and here. This is a paint pen, extra fine tip, right? It's still a little bit too much, I think. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give it a little bit of gesture into those marks. I'm going to take my scratch knife right here. You can take a pin or something like that. I'm just going to model these highlights a little bit more. So it's kind of like a straight bar if I magnified this, you know, and my mark of paint might look like this. Okay, and now what I'm doing with this scratch knife is I'm kind of narrowing, you know, an application so it's kind of more gestural. It'll kind of narrow out like that, where just kind of inherently the pen can't do that, you know, with that given tip there. So, I mean, you can kind of get a little gesture into it if you kind of, you know, apply it in like a little wisp, but not like around corners like that, or I can't. So this is like going and just kind of like scratching away or carving off some of that. So see how much, see like that line is so much more, whatever, varied and thin now, you know, and it looks like that. Okay, so see it doesn't stand out so much, but it stands out enough to make that rock kind of stand out a little bit more, like that, okay? And it's easy to scratch that off because it's over the top of the silver cardstock like that, okay? It doesn't mean that it's going to just wipe off with your finger like that. You know, because that acrylic sticks pretty good, but this is, you know, this is like a little knife, you know, scratching back into it, so it removes without any problem. All right, highlights in the foreground area or midground area. Let's add some in this more distant rock structure, tree structure. Oh, my white. Do you see that right there? That white there, how bright it is? And that's what it used to look like, but it dried. So let's go on with another layer and bring that out a little bit more again. The more you build up the paint, the more opaque it'll become. Like I said, in many instances, that's actually pretty good because if something darkens, it kind of recedes into the colors, the background, a lot more, okay? So it kind of visually harmonizes with the background. But for me, sometimes, you know, it's like, okay, I wish that would just stay as light as it looks as when it's been freshly applied, because I just don't feel like going back in and having to redo it again. But if I'm kind of just tinkering around with something and trying to figure something out, sometimes it's not so bad because, you know, it gives you a little bit more time to kind of tweak things and, I don't know, whatever, harmonize the colors, the shadows a lot more through repetition and layering. Okay, so adding some of this white up here, that white really stands out, but again, it's going to kind of merge a little bit with the background, you know, when it dries and it gets less opaque. Okay, like that. I think it's looking a little more three-dimensional the more I kind of work on this like that. It's kind of like coming into focus a little bit more. I'm going to give some of these branches a little bit of a kind of white application. So it's kind of related to the background trees. But remember, I'm going to just stamp right over the top of them too. Those are really harsh right now, but let's just do it right now. Let's go back over it with some additional impressions. I guess I'll do it in Stays On. I thought about doing it in the Brilliance just now, just because it would be a little bit thicker of an application. Plus, I need to spray seal this off anyway. But let's go with the Stays On. I just have less kind of wet ink to have to kind of work around in a live stream like this. I'm doing it in a quicker drying ink. Okay. Can't even really see the forms of the branch. It's just kind of, it just kind of texturally darkened these areas right here a little bit more, but it broke up that, like those long straight lines in there a little bit more, like so. Let's see, let's go darker right here in the corner too with imagery like that. I usually like to kind of give it a little bit of a vignette with a darker edge like that. All right, now I do want to use these leaves in here. Like I said, the scale is, the scale is going to be off. I mean, these are supposed to be these leaves right here, and these ones are supposed to be even closer to us, but I'm going to have some of these leaves down in the water just because they're really fun to work with. And I don't know, this piece could use a little bit of added dimension. Like right in here, it gets a little bit dark. We have the reflection of that tree up there, but I think we can use some, some other little things in here just to kind of make it even more dimensional looking. Let's do this as well. Let's go with, I'll bring in the white pigment ink later. I'm trying to decide where to put these little leaves, So let's see. I think that's a good amount of them right in there. I poured out some red ones here. I don't think I've been using that color too much, recently at least. I don't have any orange, so... and this kind of this yellowish ochre colored one. The red. I don't know if I'll use green in here because I don't have like green up here on the trees, so. And these red ones are dark, so they might not, they're not going to stand out as much, maybe off the background in terms of contrast, so maybe, that might be good. I'm kind of visually forcing a few things in this scene, so with all those lighter colors over the top of the black one, and then like all these colors down here, it's just kind of it's a little bit extreme. But I figure why not? Okay, and the glue, by the time I work from that side over here, this one side's already really setting up. Now, I've thought about doing stuff like, I've thought about using some of these dried leaves in my trees or bushes before, but I've tried that and I didn't like the look of it. And it might just be because I didn't add enough of it. Maybe if I kept going on and adding more and more, it might look okay, but I don't know. My applications with them in the past, I didn't really like it too much. Maybe you'd have to go kind of extreme with it and add quite a bit of it. All right, that might be a little bit too extreme too. Look at that craziness there. Let's see what it looks like this in context. Yeah, it's a little bit too much like that down there. Let's see. I don't like so many right around in here. Let's remove that. Or if I had a little crumb there, it might look okay. Yeah, I went a little bit overboard with that. But let's see how that will look with some additional, let's add that shadow work in here. Using some additional black pigment ink. This is really light right in here. And I have spray sealed this impression down here so that I can do this with it now. Without smearing the imagery that's already been stamped down there. So it's, you know, if you spray seal it, you won't have any issue because it's nice and locked down, okay? Sometimes I don't lock it down completely, you know. If I wiped in there, I might be able to remove some of that black ink still. But I locked it down enough so that, you know, when I'm working on it in this live stream, I don't have like a bunch of like, you know, ink all over me. Okay, so let's do this too. Those leaves are standing out a little bit too much for me. I don't know if I can tone them a little bit. They're not completely adhered, but let me see if I can go in and add a little shading over the top of them. You can kind of like darken them a little bit, just with some additional ink right over the top. Oops, I just removed one. But let's add in some shadow underneath these rocks right in here. And then in doing so, I'll be tapping a little bit of this black pigment ink over the top of them so they won't stand out quite so much in terms of value, you know, light and dark, okay? So you can darken them a little bit. And I'll darken the shadows where some of them are, and we'll see how that goes. It's kind of, you can obscure things a lot of times with either dark or light, if it's like a white pigment ink, okay? And going for a little bit of more of that vignette in the lower right and left corner. Let's do this right here. Let's add a little bit of a vignette right up here too. And remember, I'll have to spray seal this Brilliance ink because it'll dry on here, but it won't adhere. So let's do that. I'm not going to add any over here because this area is kind of more open. Like that. Okay. But I think that looks a little bit better right in there. Whether those leaves are kind of contributing or not, I don't know. It contributes to the three-dimensional look. But again, they are large, so let me try something right here. I'm bringing in a little bit of shadow work into that area. Let's see, like that. Oops, I just wiped off a leaf right over there. I'm gonna come back into that shadow and kind of taper it a little bit. So I'm removing some of that ink with this. Kind of trying to model that shadow a little bit, or kind of carve it out a little bit. It's real smudgy right there right now. I do this right here. I'm knocking off my leaves in there. All right, I like that leaf right there, though. Let me go back in here with that. One thing I did with this area down below, I added that white before I stamped out my boulders with lichen, which is the rocks down there. And then I dried it off. I heat set it a little bit. And then that over stamping of white, I was able to just kind of wipe that off a lot easier with a paper towel with it being dry, because even the Brilliance ink, when it's dry on here, you can wipe it right off. Okay, not the StazOn, but the Brilliance. So that was a little trick that I learned today from, when was it? I don't know, it was Friday or something like that, when I was doing those other reflection cards. But I think that is it right there. Let's see. All right, a little bit more of those dots right up there, because we have this kind of this floating leaf type of thing going on down here. Oh, okay. I almost forgot too. Now let's see how this looks right here. Okay, that looks a little bit better. I've interspersed some of those dots down in here too. Like that. Looks a little bit more dimensional. Let's bring a little bit more kind of dimension right up here with some white pigment ink, and go for kind of a soft application right in here. And we'll bring some of that cloudy type of lighting and texturing into the front of this whatever point area, rock outcropping, whatever. There we go, that's starting to build up a little bit. This will apply a lot easier over the top of photo paper, but again, if you just kind of logged on, or before I was talking about this before, this print right here I got from Shutterfly, and it's not on, it's either not on photo paper, although it looks like it. It looks like photo paper, but they've sealed it off, this glossy print, so much that it won't accept your standard water-based inks like photo papers usually do. So that being said, this is really sealed off and non-porous, so this isn't applying as fast as I find that it normally does. Just, you know, with a like an inkjet printer printed photograph. Okay, so anyways, I just applied some of it right down here and there. Okay, let's go a little bit more down below here. All right, I've applied a little bit more than I think looks ideal, but it's going to dry more transparent. Okay, so we'll go like that. Yeah, that's really opaque right there, but it's going to dry, I don't know, much more transparent than that. So from a textural standpoint, I think that looks pretty decent right there. And I'm looking at this kind of surface right around in here. I think that looks reasonably dimensional and 3D. I should probably darken this horse. I got a pretty good impression out of that horse when printing on top of the foil. With that had been spray sealed with the Krylon workable fixative. But let's go a little bit darker, just with some additional ink here. Maybe a Q-tip would be a better applicator for that. And let's try this out right here. This works fine. I'm not trying to make this just horse completely solid, but I'm just darkening the lower portion of it a little bit, just so that it stands out against that background a little bit more. Might look a little bit more three-dimensional. Let's see. All right. Check it out again. Yeah, that looks a little bit better. This would be pretty cool right down here. If I spray seal this right here, I can bring a little bit of that kind of misty fog or something like that right down in here too. And I think that would be a nice finishing touch on here from a textural standpoint. I'm gonna have to wait for this to dry though, and I'll spray seal it. I'll have to spray seal it pretty thick, and then I'll just apply a little bit more of that white right down in this area, so it'll bring some of that kind of softer, kind of billowy white texturing right up here into this, I don't know, whatever, mid-ground area, I guess. And we'll bring it right down here into the foreground as well. So anyways, just I don't know if that was a quick experiment, not that quick, an hour, but I really wanted to see how those autumn colors could look like just over the top of a black impression using the paint pens. I think that looks pretty decent like that. It might be easier to do it, like I said, I usually do it over the top of, if I'm bringing in like a lot of lighter colors over the top of a darker one, the vellum paper kind of method of overlaying vellum with all the colors on it or something like that right over the top of, in this case, a photo. Sometimes that works a little bit faster or easier, but it does involve, taking like a spray adhesive and spraying the vellum and then applying it over the top of it like that. But I think that looks pretty decent like that. I do like those colors. You can almost use a little bit more, another layer maybe of the yellow or something like that, or the orange, I think, to make it pop a little bit more. And so that it reflects a little bit lighter down here. Maybe I'll wait for this. Maybe I'll spray seal this all off again, and then I'll go over it with some final touches, little tweaks on there. Because when you do spray seal it, I think you get more of a kind of opaque application of that paint. Because see, if I keep adding this paint, like a light one over the top of that darker, the darker ones underneath it, I think it's merging with the bottom layers too and putting the bottom layers back into solution just a touch, because it's putting liquid right back onto that, exposed floating paint, because the paint's not kind of absorbing into the paper at all. In this case, the photographic photo paper, or in this case, like down here, that foil like that. So it's really floating out there. So if you apply a wet media over the top of it, that's the same binder, in this case water, it might put it back into solution. So if you want to get like a white over the top of it or a light yellow over the top of a red, that might also be the thing that's contributing to it kind of darkening a lot more than what it looks like when it's been freshly applied. So maybe another sealant or something like that. So I've been playing around with that, going back to that. I did some experiments with that before, working layers of, the workable fixatives, or I think that's what it was. I don't think I was doing it with the UV spray, but, one more layer with this one. First of all, I have to lock down these shadows down here, the brilliance ink, but maybe I'll do that over the top of some of these paints right in here. And then see if I can kind of get kind of that top end lighter tone using the paint pens like that, more of that really bright yellow or something like that. And that might stand out a little bit more. Because when you get those top end colors like that, or highlights when you're using a white paint pen, it can make a pretty big difference. Because if you're going from something that's, I don't know, whatever, like a 92%, lightness or something like that, if you want to go to like 100% or 98 or something like that, you can jump, you can really bump up the contrast of a certain area, which, even if it's by a little bit, it can make a pretty big difference sometimes, or a lot of times, because if you put something light next to something darker, it makes the darker things look that much darker by contrast too. So you're kind of pushing at that value scale quite a bit. So anyway, should the horse and rider have some white highlights? You could, yeah, maybe. It would be a little bit awkward for me to add that on there. It would really stand out though. And see the horse, I've put it here because it's against all of that lighter kind of reflection area. So it's already has kind of a good, pretty good highlight. If I put like white right in here, if I did that, I would do some additional carving out of it, because it would look kind of, even that white 0.7 millimeter one. Okay, so someone sent me these other pens, and I have yet to try them out. I need to experiment with them. But they're the Jane Davenport. She went to Australia and picked these up. But there's the, like this brush tip one, which in theory you can get much more of a lighter kind of gestural kind of application of it. But if this thing's like really flowing, I'm not going to be able to get like a really fine mark. I need to practice with it first. So like that over in a lot of areas in theory might be able to give me a pretty good varied gestural mark on there. So I don't know, I can try it on there. The person too, if you kind of spray seal this too, like there's certain areas on her, it'd be kind of cool to add in like a little bit of tone with like an alcohol ink on there. Same thing with these like little rocks in here. I can go in and add in a little bit of tone onto them using an alcohol ink if they're spray sealed off enough. You can't go on with too much alcohol though, because what the alcohol will do is it will start dissolving this sort of coating on here. Alcohol, would be able to do that. But if you work fast enough and give it kind of just a quick gestural mark, like one layer, because alcohol is going to dry really fast, that could be another potential type of color that you can add down. So this right down here is just kind of black and white. You might be able to add in whatever color, like a greenish tinge might be kind of interesting on there, like it's a slightly lichen or moss covered rock or something like that. And you can get some additional colors right up in here too. So anyways, yeah, I'll give that a try with some additional coating with the workable fixative like that. All right. Hello, Ginger. All right, folks, just a little experiment here. It's like one of the, like 1,000 things I've kind of pondered here a little bit. A lot of it was with this tree in here and how that, we can apply some tones in that. Not real super happy with my foreground ones in those same colors right down in here. Maybe if I use that same tree, as like a little bush or something like that down in here, as opposed to the more sparse leaf stamp. That could have worked though. And I want to do, I'm experimenting with stuff like this too, because I want to do this scenario. I think I've tried it before, but it didn't really come out like as bright as I wanted it to. But I want these trees in here in one of those kind of spring type of pink blossom type of scenarios where you have like a bunch of pink all over the place. So I got to figure out how to do that over the top of these trees like this. I don't know, you know. See, I don't think like a pink stays on would be the solution to stamping that tree out. You know what I mean? And then putting pink over the top of it, because I need a little bit of a darker background for the forms of the branches. So I think I need to go with like brighter pinks or something like that, and violets or something like that, white, over the top of at least like a purple or something like that. But if they don't have something like that and this stays on, then I'm gonna, you know, then we're back with black again on that. So I want like that whole kind of that, you know, whatever cherry blossomy type of landscape in there. So this is like one of my first kind of experiments with that. I mean, I've done this like this before, but I haven't just like, I don't think I've added as many layers as like tonight on that one, but I think it looks pretty good like that. I don't have as many pinks in the 3mm pens like these. I might have to start looking into another set, or I have some other ones. Maybe if I didn't use, I don't know. Let me see. I have some of these other ones like this, these other brands that I haven't even opened up yet. But I don't know. There's some colors in here: violet, light purple, and pink. Like these ones that might work. I don't know. I have to give this one a try right here. But this was an oil-based one. Okay, I've tried the 0.7mm, but I haven't tried out these 3mm yet. So I'll have to give those a try and see what we can do in terms of, you know, that kind of light on dark scenario like that, you know, for really shimmery types of trees. So, yeah. All right, folks. Hope you have a great rest of evening and new week here. Halloween week, isn't it? All right, folks. Hope you have a good night, and hope to see you in the next live stream.